Hi there. In Grail mythology, the question is of crucial importance to the unfolding of the narrative. And I'm trying to think on the fly of a segue from this fact to a recent bit of bother I had, or at least my partner had, with asking somebody a question, and which obviously caused some upset to them being faced with the question because it actually seemed to invoke memories and open old emotional wounds. But perhaps that's meant to be because, sometimes we could be, quite comfortable with the fact that we are denying our emotions, and then something will happen or somebody will say something to us, and suddenly we're facing the old demons again. But hopefully this time, to overcome them or not. I've got the astrological sign for Pisces here because I'm wondering if the Pisces male is incredibly emotional. In fact, these two kind of back-to-back moons, as they are, represent the emotions, the way that things are perceived, and the way that we feel. And in the Piscean male, they are linked together inextricably, so that everything that they perceive is on the emotional level. And yet they are very, very adept at concealing their emotions, even from themselves. And I mean, I say the Piscean male, but in fact, it's all of us really. We all have this tendency. It's just that in astrology, some tendencies are more than in one individual than they are in another individual. So you have this situation of asking the question, and oh my God, what a fuss represented by these wavy lines. Terrific amounts of paranoia expressed, suspicion. Making a complete mountain out of a molehill, a complete sort of tragedy out of being asked the question. And really, it boiled down to, on the practical Earth level, represented here down on the Earth quadrant, or well, the Earth part of the pentacle. It just really just occasioned a yes or a no. A yes or no would have sufficed as an answer, without all the emotion. And so this presentation is about, the rational way to respond to questions, and perhaps indeed to the question posed by the Grail itself. So as I said, a simple yes or no. If somebody asks you some information, personal to yourself, or intimate to yourself, then the only rational answer is yes or no. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. Whatever. Um, and if it's an issue, well, if it's a question about information, the answer is yes or no. So that's the kind of the practical and emotional side of things. What else is there to say, yes or no? Um, and failing that, we go up here to the air part of the pentagram, which is simply I don't know. And this is an honest answer, without any feeling of loss of face, or loss of ego. You just simply admit that you really don't know the answer to the question. Or you don't understand the question, perhaps. But certainly, you don't have a factual answer. You don't have a yes or no. If you tried to say yes or no, you'd be dishonest because you really don't know the answer. And it's kind of interesting in Egypt, for example. if you ask anybody the way to anywhere, they will always give you some answer, even if it's the wrong answer, because they don't want to say I don't know, because they don't want to say face. And of course, you wouldn't ask a woman anyway. You'd only ask a man. And men, of course, are into this, quite babies, really. They're into this, I don't want to lose face, so they're defending their ego for all their worth. And so they'd rather give you a wrong answer than to admit that they don't know. But I think admission of you don't know something, is really great. It's a start, isn't it? If you don't know something, then perhaps someone will enlighten you, or perhaps the question will prompt you to find the answer for yourself. So again, it's a rational response to the question. I don't know. Um, Now we come up to this one. I don't care. This is on the emotional water side of the pentacle. I don't care. Um, this is a little bit more defensive, I suppose, but it really, uh, what I think that underlies the answer here is that I'm not responsible for the universe. If something happens, then I really, it's not a matter of yes or no or don't know. It's a matter I simply have no interest in the topic or the issue to which the question refers. So I'm in this uninterested frame of mind, and I don't really want to have an opinion. I don't really want to find out the answer. The universe is as it is. I am as I am. You are as you are. And I don't really see why I should care either, really. It's water under the bridge, or it's irrelevant to my life. The answer is irrelevant to my current situation or lifestyle or where I am in life at the moment. And I suppose there is a degree of defensiveness. I don't care, when perhaps you do care underneath, but you don't choose to share that concern with another person, with the person asking the question. And so, I don't care. It's your privilege, basically, to perhaps not express your concern about something. And perhaps expressing your concern about something at the moment, won't help matters. It could even make matters worse. We'll come back to that in a minute. Now, the other thing on the fire side of the pentacle, we have what makes you say that. Or why do you ask this question? Because very often, people asking questions can have either an obvious agenda or a hidden agenda, and it's kind of necessary in order, well, to discover this agenda before you give an answer of yes or no, or even I don't know. And they may have I suppose this is where the paranoia comes in. There may be a conspiracy involved by persons or person unknown who wish to ask this question, but who are sending the person with the question, as a sort of front person, because they don't really want to come out of the shadows and ask the question themselves. Or it could be the person, that there is some problem within the question, the questioner, and they're really asking the question of themselves and not of you. So again, I think it's a very important thing. I mean, what makes you say that? Is a response which I think is extremely good. I know it puts the ball back in their court because they have to explain themselves further, and they have to put their question in a wider context. But it's also, but it's not only just a tactic, a debating tactic, as it were, or an argument or form of argument. You're not just being obstructionist. You really are genuinely asking why a person has asked you that question, and what is it? What is it really all about? And then finally, we come up to the spirit, which is the topmost point of the pentagram. And I've got this, the search for truth is not served by this question. And I took this sort of paraphrasing from the thing, sometimes judges say that justice is not served by pursuing this case further. Um, and for various reasons. But here there's a little bit of criticism here. It's kind of saying, well, your question is only going to stir up trouble, lead to negative consequences. Because if I give an answer, there may be problems further on down the line as a consequence of me giving you a yes or no answer. The question may be facetious, it may be rhetorical, it may be rather sort of pointless, really. If you're asking a question about somebody's past, for example, well, the past is the past, and perhaps we should live in the now, or we should sort of continue from this point in time, rather than raking over coals, as it were, old coals, and stirring up a fire again. Perhaps there's a bit of criticism here in that some questions you shouldn't ask of other people, especially unsolicited questions, that serve real no purpose for the seeking of truth. We should only ask questions that pertain to the ultimate truth of reality and of God, and not concern ourselves with trivialities. So the question has a shallowness about it, whereas we should ask deep questions, to which perhaps the answer is yes or no. I don't know what makes me ask the question, or what makes you ask, what is making me ask the question, and perhaps ultimately, as far as the universe is concerned, maybe we shouldn't care about the question or the answer. There's no point to any of it. But I like the idea about, why are you asking the question? Because of course, if we're asking the question of the keeper of the Grail, where is the Grail, or what is the Grail, or who is the Grail, or when was the Grail, what is the nature of the Grail, then it could be a good, interesting question to ask ourselves. Well, why are we asking this question? Why is it of so much importance to know the answer to the question? But the question is deep. The question perhaps is universal, it's spiritual. But I mean, it could be that, honestly, we don't know. We don't know the nature of the Grail. We don't know where it is, or when it was, or we only know vagaries of mythology. We don't know the whole story, and we cannot know the whole story. So a yes or no doesn't really make any sense to a particular aspect of the Grail. Is the Grail this? You might say, is the Grail this? Yes or no? But it might be more complicated than that. A yes or no answer might not suffice at all. And I think that this is, I've just sort of outlined, helpfully or not, the sort of rational way of looking at questions that people might fire at you, or questions that might arise, especially unsolicited questions, or surprising questions, or questions that you weren't expecting in some way. And people ask this question, and really, perhaps the best thing is to say, I don't know, give yourself more time to answer the question, rather than giving a wrong answer or a false answer, or an answer that doesn't make any sense. And that you should, but also you should be prepared to go on the attack and say to your questioner, well, that's not a valid question. That's an inappropriate question, even. Or it's a question which perhaps you're asking without much thought behind it. Not that it's a frivolous question, but you perhaps you already know the answer to the question, and so I don't have to give you the answer that you already know about. And the question really should be asked of yourself, or the group of people concerning the question, rather than, it's not of my concern, actually. So, rather than go into paranoia or emotional hysterics and suspicion and defensiveness and evasiveness, and rather, obviously, rather than going into being upset by the question, I mean, if you are upset by the question, this could be part of your life's journey. This could be part of your journey towards self knowledge. It's a question that somebody asks you, which should be asked of you, which you should have asked yourself. But it's taken someone else or a group of persons to ask you this question. And so if you feel emotional about the question, then perhaps this is a good thing, a positive thing, rather than a negative thing. But it really depends. All depends on the question. Depends on the context of the question. It depends on the questionnaire, the questioner. It depends if the question was solicited or not. It depends on a lot of different factors, really. But certainly, just going into an emotional funk over somebody asking you perhaps a question which is merely factual. But then again, as Nietzsche said, facts are values. So, the fact that a factual question could actually open a whole can of worms as to the norms, values, and beliefs of the person being questioned, which is also something that they're not comfortable about discussing. So, it's a complicated world that we enter into when we ask the question or a question of anybody or even of ourselves. I just hope that this video, sort of ties up a few loose ends and makes the subject a little bit more clear, so that when you are faced with the question or a questioner, you sort of could take a little while, 30 seconds or more, just to think where you are on this pentagram, and how you might respond to the question.